Hello, everyone. Happy Fall Wednesday. I'm just going to give it a couple of seconds because I know folks need to transfer over from the waiting room over into the main room. If this is your first time joining us, hello, my name is Sadie Uribe, and I'm the media producer for the Los Angeles Regional SBDC. The SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country, helping to stimulate economic growth through business advising and development. The LASBDC offers no-cost services through funding provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, and from the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. It's your tax dollars at work. The Los Angeles Regional SBDC Network operates 7 service locations throughout Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. Our services are also offered virtually. We are here to help. We empower small business owners by offering tailored solutions through personalized one-on-one business advising, cutting-edge workshops, and comprehensive programs, all provided at no cost. We are dedicating to supporting your entrepreneurial journey every step of the way. I don't know, Lori. I heard that there's going to be some, action happening today, more than usual. Like we're getting into our deep insights.
I know we always have a lot of action. In fact, I was sitting there trying to move all the screens around that I'm going to show without accidentally clicking out of Zoom. So if you saw me focus while Sadie was talking, I was like, let me not click out of everything. Okay, so let's get started. We got a fun day. Oh, Nadia, thank you. I got an I love you, Lori, already. I needed that today. How did you know that? I totally needed that. I was saying before the show, it has been a rough week of consulting already. People don't hear me about the quart of milk, guys. I just don't know. I may have to stop talking about it someday because I'm just going to give up. Okay, you ready? Here we go, guys. You know what's amazing to me? That I'm literally looking at the show lineup and I'm saying, okay, we got X amount of days before the holidays. And I think that's awesome. Okay. Because I need a break. But anyway, these are the webinars coming up. Sadie has the entire list for December. I'm trying to get every one of the webinars I offer on a monthly basis to be included before the year end. I know a lot of times some people, get really busy. Some people shut down a little bit and want to take these webinars at that time. So since they're not recorded, I tried to make sure everyone gets in play. Sadie will put that in the chat right now. Next week, we got Janice coming in. Her company is leaving. I keep wanting to say living. It's actually leaving in style. And it talks about business strategy and succession planning. Topics that I have not had on the show yet. She was a referral to me, and I thought it would be great to kind of talk about this because for some of you, you do want to look at how that works out. And so it's a begin with the end in mind. Now, the next week is a holiday week, and I was going to have a couple people come on, but they were gone for holidays, respectfully so. I don't like to have guests come on a holiday week because I know many of you are not there. So I said, you know what? We'll have a special Thanksgiving show, chat with Lori. I always tell Sadie it'll be 10 minutes or 5 minutes or a whole hour. We'll see. And it always ends up running over, which is, she reminds me of that every single time. But any topics that you want to talk about, you can put it in the chat. Just give Sadie a shout out. She'll collect it and make sure it gets to me. Anything we want to go over, anything at all. We'll just chat and we'll maybe make it a 2-minute thing and happy Thanksgiving. I'll let you guys determine on that. Okay, Lori's corner today is going to be very interesting. I'm going to ramble because I do that sometimes. And you might think, okay, Lori's crazy and rambling. She's got a minor point. She has no point. All's good. Here we go, guys. Just a different perspective on something I had been thinking about this week. However, it was not something I think about this week. I've probably been thinking about this for months. And I started thinking about this concept that I called the survival of the skeptic. And I actually started thinking about this 4 or 5 years ago. As many of you know, I grew up in the country. I grew up in the woods, right? And it was always watching like the deer specifically. The deer would put their head down, they'd take a few bites, and they immediately put the head up. and they look around. And the head goes back down, take a few bites, put their head up and look around. And that is the kind of behavior patterns I grew up around. And I remember even as a child thinking about, well, humans, can you imagine eating a few bites with a fork and having to look around? We don't have to do that. We don't have to be that type of person, right? We're safe. We're completely safe from all that. We don't have to have as an awareness, as much of a heightened awareness about our environment as the animals did in the woods. Unless I was in the woods, which I was a lot, then I could be eaten by something. So I would be more conscious as well. And so I had this play back and forth, this yin yang with this skeptic type of behavior for survival. And does it really apply? Right. And what about 4 years ago, I realized that because I had ingrained in me a level of skepticism, how much it allowed me to survive, especially because I was able to question everything. Anything that was given to me, fed to me, told to me, I go, well, is that true? How do I know it's true? If it was not true, what would it look like? And I used to believe if the majority of people saying something's true, it's possibly true. But I realized, fascinating, that's no longer true either. So it really does, for a second, make you kind of look at things and have to question them in a whole new way. Now, I want to show you last year, I think it was last year, I went to South Dakota, Black Hills, South Dakota. Anybody's been there? Beautiful place, beautiful place. And I had this wonderful experience with seeing a buffalo. And I'm going to show you a quick video here. Okay. Now, I want to show you something else, guys. When I was in South Dakota and I saw the buffalo, this is the picture I took. The buffalo never moved. Where am I going with this? Where am I going with this, guys? Why am I telling you that the buffalo never moved? And why am I going back to my conversation? I've been really questioning, as many have, about AI. Now, I don't think it's good or bad. I don't think it's going to take over the world. I don't think it's not going to take over the world. I think it's a tool. And I think it's like anything, it can be used in many different ways. You know, the old famous thing, electricity can cook your eggs or kill a man, a knife can cut your beef or kill somebody. Those are old ones, sorry, but you know what I'm saying by that. I think it's just a tool. But I decided to play with Grok and I, took that picture and I uploaded it and I was shocked, guys. If I didn't know that picture was just of the buffalo, there's no way I would have believed that was not a real video I took. No way. So it led me to this thought process where I say, you know what? We are no longer going to be able to rely on our eyesight only. Our what do we see, what we hear, what we just can't rely on it. And it brought this to mind this week. And I was talking to Xiomara, who's our guest today before the show. I'm having people go on AI and send me list of what they need to do to incorporate. And I don't read those lists. I'm not going to, compete with AI. If you trust AI, go with AI. If you want my advice, I'll give you my advice. But that's not the point here. The lists are convoluted, they're not correct, they're like naming every tax form. And if I didn't know what I knew, I would not know it wasn't a correct list. So here's where I want to give a different perspective. I see AI as an excellent computer. It's not conscious, it's not sentient, it's a computer still, that is able to digest tons of information. How lovely is that? For someone who loves data, digest ton of information, I'm in. I love it. I love it. I could ask it a question, it could pull up every reference, everything ever existed. Great. But it's an invitation for me to raise my intelligence and my awareness. It's an invitation for me to be smarter, not to be replaced, but to be even smarter, to have another word I love, discernment. So I think if we look at AI as the race where the person running next to you is going faster and it gives you energy and vitality and suddenly you come out of the nowhere within you and you run faster because you see the competition. Let's take AI and say, you're very good at giving us a lot of information, but I'm even better at using every sense I have, plus maybe some internal sense, some gut sense. somewhat makes sense, and my intelligence to say, is this true? How is it affecting me? What am I relying on? Am I depending on this? What is the outcome if this is not true? And ask these fascinating, intelligent questions. So, my statement today is I think that we all have an invitation to raise our intelligence and our awareness beyond what we ever seem capable. And isn't it so that the human growth and capacity has always come out of being pushed in a corner when required to do so? That's Lori's Corner. With that, I'm very excited to bring on our new returning guest. Xiomara Palma is the founder and CEO of Solvit HR, a boutique HR consultancy built specifically for small businesses. With over 15 years of hands-on experience, Xiomara is a certified HR consultant who has worked across a wide range of industries, helping business owners navigate the complexities of compliance. Oh, yeah, they are complex, while boosting their profitability through their people productivity. I love that, Xiomara. And I'm going to say again, I got to update that because 15 years was 5 years ago. So you're probably going on 20 because yeah, so
You're
you got
dating
much
me, Laura.
more.
You're dating me.
It's so funny. I had to change all of my bio to 30 years in consulting, and I'm gonna have to change it even more. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah. When you start looking at your years of experience, but you know what? It gives me what I want. I mean, I love being more intelligent, don't get me wrong, but I'm not searching out intelligence at this point because AI can give me the intelligence. I'm searching for wisdom. I
Mhm.
want wisdom. And that is something that gray hairs, I got a few coming out right here. Gray hairs do give you. Now, that doesn't mean youth can't have wisdom. It's just a positioning. But I think wisdom is our golden goose for today. So,
Absolutely.
welcome back. Any comments
Yeah.
you'd like to start out with?
Thank you. Thank you. No, I'm just so glad to be here today, and just see where we go.
Yeah, we always do go somewhere. So one of the things I just want to, Samara was on what 3 weeks ago or so, and we didn't get to finish things, so I had to have you back on. So I want to jump into it. I just want to make a note to everybody that shout out to Pasadena SBDC. Samara is an advisor there, so you can set up an appointment just like you do with me. She is a wealth of information, and there's not a lot of HR people that I really do have a great trust that they have all the data because the data is so convoluted to gather. And so a lot of people don't realize the amount of aggressive, active actions you have to take to stay up on things. And let's start there, Samar. Let's start there. Do you find that even more so today, I find it in my world, and let me see your input on this. I feel like I have to be super vigilant. Like I have to search out. I can't even wait for information to come to me from an association or anything. I got to be constantly searching out what is new laws even.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have a Google alert on my on my end to keep me up to date with new laws, lawsuits, things of that
Yeah.
nature, because a lot of times, the information that some of the law firms put out, sometimes it may be just general, or
Right.
it may be like, what they think is relevant to their audience, but it may not be all the laws that actually go into effect. So I do find myself, I think I've told you this in the past, I'm such a HR nerd.
Yes.
I'm such a geek, and I do find myself a lot of times actually going directly to the bills and reading them,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then comparing notes with
Which you have to. I
information.
love that you brought that up because and for me, I bet you I get 5 emails per day, believe it or not, from the IRS as being a enrolled agent certified by the US Treasury. And they send out their memos, and I will sometimes then look to see what especially law firms that specialize in tax are speaking on, but it's a condensed version.
Mhm.
Then I have to go to the bill or the law, whichever it is, to
Yeah.
read up the actual copy. It's exhausting, but it's the only way you actually know. In fact, just yesterday, I bought the entire edition of the updated of California's code on legal structures, because there is even conflicting information between the law firms on certain things like a professional corporation, whether you can be an S corp if you're certified, et cetera. So there's all these big questions. But one place I want to go next is, I'm just going to say it this way and I'll let you go with it. So why would you look at lawsuits? Why would an HR person look at lawsuits?
Well,
Let's go there. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just throw that at you.
well, I mean, the lawsuits really give us sort of like a what to expect, you know, in different areas of the law, right? So if there's a lawsuit, for example, on what I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna go with the meal and rest periods because that's the most contended contended area of HR. It just tells us like what practices to implement to prevent, the clients or businesses from landing there, from being sued. And
And that's one of the things that, just this concept of when I went for my enrolled agent, had to pass all those exams. They were brutal, much more than I thought they were going to be. But I actually had a false belief, a completely false belief that when I got to that level of knowledge, things were going to be black and white. They felt gray to me because I was lacking the knowledge. Then I find out they're actually very gray, and the law is based on the precedence of what was decided in the courts. And
Mhm.
so, like you said, somebody could actually, and you correct me on this in HR because it's definitely in my world, be believing they're following the letter of the law only to find out their interpretation of it is different than they perceived. Comment on
Yeah.
that in your world.
Yeah, absolutely. That this is true. It's all left to interpretation. So going back to like those meal and rest periods, right? Like California law says, an employee is entitled to a 30-minute uninterrupted meal period if they're going to work more than 5 hours in their shift, right? And so what's always being contested is like the interpretation of it. So it would say like, by the fifth hour. And then so people would take it like right clock out for lunch right at the fifth hour.
Ah,
But then recent interpretation, based on lawsuits, has said prior to the end of the employee's fifth hour worked. So
ah,
when they work 4 hours and 59 minutes, right? So if they are clocking out right at the fifth hour, they already violated the law.
wow.
And
Yeah. Oh,
so
wow.
it's left to interpretation because for so many years, many companies were practicing, okay, well, if someone started work at 8 a.m., then their fifth hour is at 1 p.m. So they have to clock out for lunch at 1 p.m. No, they have to clock out for lunch at 12:59 or no later than 12:59, prior to 12:59, to be in compliance with the law. So, so these lawsuits do give us a lot of clarity
Yeah.
into, how the laws is being interpreted.
And for those that are the ones in court, not the ones that are learning from the person in court, there are heavy fines that they can be subject to. So it's not like, oh, okay, I didn't know, we'll do this from this point on. They can walk away with a very hefty, hefty, costly fine.
Yeah, ignorance is not
No,
bliss.
no excuse. Yeah, no
So
excuse to the law.
when
It's
we're
so
in
true.
court, so
It's so true. And what I always find challenging, especially with HR laws, it's like to me, and I'm respecting HR, obviously. People need a lunch break. People need bath. I mean, I'm not, that goes without saying. But some of it just walks against productivity. It just is like,
Mhm.
how do you make sure this person is walking down the hall at the right time? I guess then you just make sure you do it an hour before. But the problem is most people don't even know that it can be this specific, so they just kind of go, okay, got it, and then they try to follow it, and then they go. So Steve asked, is anyone working only 5-hour shifts, do they get any mandated breaks? Good question.
Is anyone working only
Oh,
five
so
hours?
sorry, I didn't read that really well. For anyone working only 5-hour shift. So they're only working 5 hours. Do then they have a mandated break they have to take? That was mine. I didn't read it well enough.
Yeah, so there's meal periods and then there's rest breaks, 10-minute rest breaks. So the 10-minute rest breaks are for every 3.5 to 4 hours worked. So that person, if they only work 5 hours, or less than 5 hours, then technically, they wouldn't really need a meal period, but they would still get their rest break. At least
Okay.
one rest break. Yeah.
I have to ask. I can't help it. I'm trying not to ask. Uninterrupted.
Yes.
How did you? I got okay. Let me just leave it at that. Uninterrupted. Go ahead.
Uninterrupted. So that means that you are relieving the employee from all duties,
Okay.
and the employee is free to leave the premises. You're not restricting them, because that was another lawsuit.
Yep. Yep. I thought
That
it
was
was.
another
I just thought
lawsuit
it
that
was.
clarified that,
Yep.
where they were restricting the employees to be within the facility.
Okay.
So they are free to go. They cannot be interrupted with, any
Question even, right? You can't
yeah.
even bother them for a question.
Right. And then if it's going to take them a while, so if the rest, so for example, the break room or
Mhm.
the rest area is pretty distant from their work area, then you have to factor in the time that it takes them to get from their actual work area to their rest area. Okay, so it might be a break longer than 10 minutes. You
Right.
add
Okay.
another 2 minutes, taking the time that it takes them to walk from their work area to their rest area.
How is this monitored if you have a online employee? I think it's through the computers to prove it. Is that correct? They sign out, they sign back in. So if you've got an employee that is working remotely, you have to have some kind of system. I'm making the statement, you correct me, but some kind of system in place to prove it because you have no visual representation. Would that be a correct?
Yeah, so that's where it gets a little bit more difficult to monitor, right? And then technically, the law doesn't require employers to keep records of rest breaks.
Okay.
Meal breaks, yes. You have to clock out, they have to clock out, they have to clock back in. You have to have those records. But with the rest breaks, it's not mandated. Now, it's best practice to have those records, right? Because, given that it's one of the most litigious areas. So it really is up to the employer to ensure that they have a system that they are using to monitor or ensure that the employee has taken the rest break.
Right.
Some payroll systems will have, some time clock systems will have a way to record rest breaks too. And I really love those systems because I'm
Yeah.
like, they leave no room for any questioning,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've seen those as well. You hit unintentionally, you hit on a very hot topic. So we're going to stay on this because we got more questions on this. You did. I mean, I'm like going, I'm watching the chat as you're talking. I'm like going, oh my God, we got a lot of questions on this. So here's one I'd like you to unpack because this is huge unpacking. Okay. I'm going to read the question and then I'm going to give you my unpacking on it.
Mhm.
So Nancy asked, do the same hourly break rules apply to exempt one and contract employees? So the first thing is there is serious rules, and you're the expert on it. I just know enough to be dangerous when somebody can be classified exempt in manager status. And I think a lot of people that do have it classified don't realize they're not technically. So talk on the exempt and contract employees. I don't even know what that word means, and I'm sure you don't
Okay,
either. So
let's unpack this.
let's unpack this. Nancy, excellent question. Samara, I'm handing it to you. Unpack it and just
Thank
run
you.
with it.
It
There's a
sounds
lot
like
of
a
things we
bomb
need to
that's
explain.
ticking.
That is a bomb. Yes, that is a bomb. That's why I loved it. You got it. Bomb. Woo! Grenade your way. Go for it.
All right, awesome. So exempt status. So there are two different classifications that you can have employees classified as. So you can have them classified as hourly employees, and then you can have them classified as salaried employees. So the difference is obviously hourly employees are, mostly people that are working doing manual labor. That's the easiest way that I can explain it and tell my clients. Obviously, there's more that goes into it. But a salaried employee is someone that you're paying for intellectual knowledge, right?
Okay.
Someone that doesn't necessarily is going to take, they're going to be working on creating something manually or building something, but it's more you're paying them for the knowledge, that skill set. And to compensate someone as salary, there are criteria, different tasks that need to be met. One of the most important ones is that you have to pay that salary employee at least twice the state's minimum wage.
Right.
Okay, there are some exemptions for some industries too, because recently new laws have gone into effect for minimum wage for the fast food industry and then healthcare industry. Okay, so for those industries, you have to pay them twice whatever the minimum wage is applicable for your entity. But so that's number one. They have to be paid twice the applicable minimum wage. The second part of the test is a little bit more difficult because you have to do a test for them performing certain duties that fall within 5 different categories. So at least 51% of the job that they perform has to fall within the category. So there are different categories for exemption. So there is the enterprise exemption, or the executive exemption, I should say. Actually, that's more like administering, managing the entire enterprise. There's the professional exemption. That's more of like the intellectual knowledge and also having discretion at their own, performing duties at their own discretion. There is the licensed professional. So obviously someone like a pharmacist, maybe. Well, actually, pharmacist is a bad example because they are actually hourly. But someone who's licensed through the state. And then there is sales. So either inside salespeople or outside salespeople. There are exemptions for that. Actually, this is one that I cannot wrap my head around, that it's still legal to pay salespeople, outside salespeople, commission only.
I know. I'm surprised they didn't
Yeah,
attack
I'm
that. I know.
surprised.
I agree with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
It's going down, man. It's going
I'm
down one of these
surprised,
days.
guys. That,
Yeah.
that's good news. That's
Yeah.
good news.
But yeah, there's some hope.
So as long as you're able to, so again, within those categories, there are different job
Let me
duties.
ask you a question on those categories. Now, once again, I could be completely wrong on this, right? But I remember, and I could be wrong, but I thought I looked at it. It also had a certain level where their decisions have to have some kind or could have an impact on the overall finance of the company. In other words, their decisions and their ability to make a decision has that much of an impact. Did I make that up, or is that
No, you didn't. Yeah,
yeah.
you
See, to
didn't.
me, that makes, that really is just like AB5, usual course of business. That's like a defining thing because if you say, well, they're managing Sally over here and, Sally's doing her own thing, do they have any discretionary decision making in the company that could actually have a financial impact? Well, not really. It's really, I think that tell me if I'm wrong on this, Samara. It seems like people have to err more on the hourly, like that salary person is more of a gate you got to get up to. You don't start here and fall out. It's like you
Yeah,
start here and have to really prove that you're up here.
yeah,
Where in my days, we put everybody on salary and worked their little butt off. That's the way we did it, but that's
yeah.
not the game
But
anymore.
yeah, now it doesn't make sense
Right.
to do that because now, I mean, you're looking at about $70,000 for annual salary for someone that is truly exempt.
Oh, wow. Okay, because of the
Minimum,
twice the amount, 70,000 minimum.
minimum.
That's fascinating because the minute you say that, it's like, whoa, what small company? I mean, there are some, I'm not saying there's not, but is immediately putting $70,000 a year employees on. Wow. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
So if they don't meet, if they don't meet their criteria at that point, you probably want to just have them be
Yeah,
hourly.
yeah, exactly.
And, even though they may meet the duties, the job duties criteria, but they're not going to meet the minimum salary. So
Okay.
at that point, you're gonna probably have them be hourly employees, unless unless, they're gonna be working a lot of overtime, and then it makes more sense, right? So
Okay.
you
Yep.
gotta crunch your numbers.
Yep. You
Um,
just basically rained on the hourly break rules for exempt employees. If you get them to that level of being exempt, the hourly break rules is not as much of a concern. But if they do end up exempt, do they have to have an hourly break?
no.
I didn't think so.
So
I didn't think
yeah,
so.
so
Yep.
this is why it's so important to have the proper classification. And then, even when we talk about independent contractors, because this doesn't apply to them either.
Right.
And these are the laws that they are exempt from, so as an employee, employees have rights, right? The right to have rest breaks, meal breaks, certain benefits. But when you classify someone as an independent contractor, they kind of are on their own. And even as a salary employee, so for salary employee, because they are paid on their knowledge base, these rules don't really apply to them, right? The 10-minute rest break and the meal period. I mean, obviously they're gonna they're gonna I hope
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
giving them time to eat,
Yeah, exactly.
in
Time to go to the bathroom. Yeah. But it really
to
seems
go to the
like we're
bathroom.
moving towards really, I think we're moving towards pushing everybody to be an employee, right? Number one, and then to be an hourly employee where there's only the select executive, the C class level almost, that
Yeah.
is of the salary level. Would that be a kind of correct statement to say?
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
it would be. I mean, if unless you're gonna, like I said, unless you're gonna be compensating people like more than 70K a year,
Mhm.
then likely the proper classification is going to be hourly, even if they're going to meet the duties test.
This is
Um,
why I keep coming back to Lori's little thing is applaud for the solopreneurs. They're making the most money, but I'm not going to go there. Okay, let's go to the next. Contract employees. I have a lot of people that contact me, through the SBDC, and they begin this conversation like, well, I'm going to have contract employees. And I'm like, is that a zebra or is that an elephant? Because these are two different things. So tell me, are we talking about a zebra or an elephant? Because you can't have both.
yeah,
You
yeah.
go, you go now.
I'm trying to imagine. Maybe we can prompt AI to create an elephant stripe.
I know next, you guys, you're gonna send it to me and go, it's because I always do say, is it an elephant or a zebra? I say that all the time because it's kind of a distinction that gets people to understand. I can go on and I say, well, those are really two different, and they're like, yeah, yeah, and they listen to me and I go, okay, help me. Is this a zebra and the elephant? And it breaks them out of the program phase, and then they're prepared to listen to me. So
Yeah.
you take it from there, zebra or elephant. What are we talking about with these
We
exempt
are talking about
contracts?
elephant. I'm gonna go with elephant.
Elephant. Okay, let's go
Uh,
for elephant.
because as we always talk, right? This is the one thing that most small businesses are unaware of when they hire independent
Yeah.
contractors, right? So again, so maybe you started a business, it's starting to grow, you're trying to scale, and then you need help. And then you bring someone as an independent contractor. You're thinking that you're doing everything correctly, but then you find out that it really is almost impossible to classify someone as an independent
Yeah.
contractor here in the state of California. So there's no such thing as independent contractor employees or contractor employees.
No.
There's either you have them as an independent contractor, and hope that they meet all the criteria from the ABC test and then even the Borello test. There's different tests that they have to satisfy. Or you actually classify them as employees of the business, which is most of the time the most likely proper classification. When the Department of Labor conducts audits, they find, like, I think it's like I don't remember the exact number, but I know it's above 90% of the time that workers should have been classified as employees.
90%.
And
To me, that's questions, so okay, I'm gonna be an elephant and a zebra because now I'm gonna be a lawmaker with a brain. If I found 90% of the time people weren't following the law, I would have to ask, what is the law maybe going to do to them? You know what I mean? Okay, we'll stop now, Lori. Stop. Keep going, Tamara. I'm under control again. I'm under control. Keep going.
Yes, Lori. You're onto something here. You're onto something.
Gonna shut my mouth now. Keep going, Tamara.
So yeah, so either you have your people classified as independent contractors, and they really are there to a true independent contractor is there to perform work that is not related to your business, and they are there to complete it within a short time frame. They're not going to be there consistently. There, you don't have control over the work, the tools, the equipment they use, how they complete the work. You don't provide evaluations, performance evaluations for them. You don't provide them compensation. Rather, they give you their rates, they negotiate their rates. And then hopefully you do have a contract, as now it's required by law
For
to have a
independent
contract.
contractors, yep.
Yeah. And I also want to talk about the exceptions to the rule. So if you're going to pay someone less than $600 for the entire year, then technically, yes, that person could be an independent contractor, because you don't really have to report them to the employment development department. And, the work was probably so
No paper
minimal.
trail.
Yeah, the work was probably so minimal, that
Yeah.
it didn't exceed the $600 threshold.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah. So most of the time, those workers are likely to be independent contractors. And the struggle, so it's not so much the classification, the struggle is the finances, right? So
Oh,
how do I pay? How can I afford to actually convert this person to an employee? Because there is a cost, right? There is
yep.
payroll tax, there is workers' comp insurance, um, there are additional costs, right? So you're going to have to also provide certain benefits to them. So it is a cost to
It
convert them
is.
to
And
independent.
I have to say, and this is Lori with her mouth open again, I just find it, I'm going to use the word mind boggling, because I am so based in reality and numbers. I don't quite see how these small companies starting out are going to afford to have people as employees. I just can't see the math. This week alone, I met with 3 people who have 1 to 2 employees who are making far more than they're going to make. And if they put on other employees to get the revenue high enough based on the gross margin, they're going to just be more tired and more broke. I just don't see how it
Yeah.
pencils out. The 2 aspects that it seems to be a choice is you either go for I'm going to use this example, and I got a question on this. So say there's a yoga studio, and the yoga studio just wants to offer 1 class on Friday. By independent contractor rules, it's got to be an employee, a temporary employee.
Mhm.
That temporary employee has to go through ADP and everything. What I couldn't remember, and I think it's so, don't you have to include sick pay even if it's a temporary employee or not? You do. And I'm
All
right on that. That's what I
all
thought.
employees. Yes, you're always right, Lori.
That's right. Well, not always.
You're
Now,
always right.
and what I'm thinking is, and catch me on this one too. The temporary employee not only has to sick, not vacation time or anything, but sick time, right? So you're going to have to pay them a little bit more, right? And also that temporary employee does, and I'm not sure on this one. I don't think, because it's the 3 rule. If the temporary employee is there and you have 2 owners that are working in the company, you got 3. They're also subject to making sure they're exempt from Cal Savers, correct? Because you got the number 3.
Well, yeah, and then CalSavers now is applicable at the one employee.
Oh, it is. So the
The one
one, so
employee.
they would also have calcium. So even this
Yeah.
temporary employee becomes a little bit of a headache. Well, a lot of a headache, because
Mhm.
you've got to have an ADP, you got to have workman's comp, you got to have the Cal Savers process, you got to have all this even for the temporary employee. It almost leads me to sometime believe, and I know it's a financial problem as well, but just go through staffing agencies if you just have an
Mhm.
occasional need. It seems like I used to not say that, but it seems like that's the new answer, Samara. What do you think?
Yeah, it makes more sense now, because
Kind of does.
the staffing agency, um, I mean, there's still some liability, right? Some risk,
Right,
as a co-employer, you kind of
right.
are a co-employer with the staffing agency, because you're the actual work site where this person works. And so there's some shared liability there, but the staffing agency takes the brunt of it. You know, they provide the workers' comp, they keep track of the hours, the timekeeping. They have to provide, you know, the sick time, a lot of these requirements, right? The sexual harassment training that's required. Yeah, a lot of the different trainings, they have to provide that. And so, yeah, you know,
While we're on that, Nancy's asking a question I always wonder about too. I haven't got my head around this one. Virtual assistants. Let's just go with that.
Mhm.
Because I know everything comes under a category and then it fits into the little funnel. Do they just come under temporary employee? Do they come under usual course of business? How are virtual assistants playing into this?
So it depends. Again, so virtual assistants, if they are part of a company, I know that most virtual assistants come from or are part of a company that provide virtual assistants. So if that's the case, then
Yeah.
technically you are just having someone provide services to you, like another company provides services to you. They're not your employee, right? You actually have, you actually have some hired a company to provide you support. You know, kind of like the same thing as like PEOs, professional employer
Yep.
organizations,
Yep.
kind of like the ADPs of the world, right? Where they not only provide the payroll side of things, but they provide like back office support for businesses, like, you know, in a lot of different areas. It's kind of like the same thing, right? So technically you are hiring them to provide a service, um, but you know, they're not your actual employee.
And it seems
There.
like in these temporary situations, it's like Nancy said, it's more pricier, but at the end of the day, I haven't done any penciling out. Maybe at this point it's not, you know what I mean? But it definitely is a choice. I still think we should go back to, and somebody in chat tell me, I can't remember this. It's an old nursery rhyme. Maybe you know, Zamira, we got to go back to the baker, the butcher, and the candlestick maker. Did I get it right, guys? You know what I'm talking about. Am I too old? Nobody knows what I'm talking about. It's a nursery rhyme, right? But it's the concept of the solopreneur. Everybody's doing their own thing, and I buy from the bakery, I buy from the butcher. Yeah, okay, I got it right. I really think we have to go back to that. But while we're on this topic, because I was watching the clock, I brought you back on because there was something that you wanted to tell us that I didn't get time to tell us. So we're on a good route now, Zamara. So there's new HR laws coming into play. Can you give
There's
us
new
a
HR
yeah,
laws.
give us
Yeah.
a breakdown because that was one of the whole reasons
All
I
right.
wanted you to make
I got
sure.
my
So,
notes here, so don't
okay.
don't don't be mad at me if I'm like looking down.
Oh no, because they're
But
plenty. So those
I
of you
actually,
who don't have employees or employees, listen up. New HR laws, go.
um, so since we're talking about independent contractors, I'll start out there. There's a new law that is actually providing a program for construction and trucking employers to properly classify their independent contractors as employees.
I knew they were going to go after them because they tried using LLCs to get an exemption with
Yeah, remember they tried to
AB5.
lobby for an exemption
They did
and
totally. So they went after them. Okay, what did they do?
so basically, yeah, this new law is like clarifying how they should be reimbursed
Okay.
for business related expenses. So, you know, it's expenses for like mileage, expenses for like anything business related, upkeeping of their vehicles. And then it also specifically says that just the fact that they own a vehicle does not make them an independent contractor.
Or an LLC, just opening an LLC doesn't make them a bona fide. That was one of the
Yeah,
biggest hot contentions when the
yeah.
AB5. So yeah, they're coming back after that. They did not want to let go of that. So I can see that now.
That
Yeah.
them and also nail salons.
Oh yeah, the nail salons. I thought they were going to get an exemption. They've been fighting for tooth
They did get exemption, but it ended this year.
exemptions end.
Yeah, the exemption ended for
Of course they do. Why wouldn't they? Okay, keep going. I'm going to shut up
yeah,
over
yeah,
here.
yeah,
Keep
yeah.
going.
All right. So that's one. So basically, this amnesty program, provides them the benefit of like a relief from penalties if they actually convert, have an audit, self-audit, and then they convert, properly classify the independent contractors as employees.
What a beautiful name. It sounds so beautiful, doesn't it? Okay, I'm sorry, keep going.
Yes. So that's one. And then we also have clarification on pay transparency. So if you remember a couple years ago, we had a new law that went into effect that required employers to disclose the pay scale for the different positions on their job postings.
Yeah, I remember that.
So now this new law actually extends the statute of limitations for employees to file a suit and also extends the look back period. And then it actually redefines what is considered, it redefines pay scale.
Now, so are you saying that if you advertise for a certain amount, you can't offer me less even if my resume doesn't satisfy the amount when I interview? Is that what, or am I totally misunderstanding that?
It's basically, so I think like some employers have found like a workaround. Um, Yeah, because the law previously said like it has to, it didn't specifically say like it has to be like the exact amount. Like it said, I said something more general, like, what you expect to pay someone, for doing the job. And so now I think they're getting a little bit more specific that it has to be like a good faith effort to provide, yeah, good faith effort to provide a pay scale that's specific to the job.
Those of us that are in the know what's going on when the law now reads good faith effort.
Good faith
Keep
effort.
going.
Mhm. Yes. And then this is applicable to employers with 15 or more employees. So
Oh, okay, okay. So
yeah,
be careful what you put in print when you're advertising a job, but make sure you put in print how much because that's the law and you've got to be very careful with that. So be conscious of that.
yeah.
Okay?
So that's another one. And then we also have a law that's extending paid family leave. So this is a benefit through the state through the EDD.
Okay.
So when you have an employee that's going to take a leave of absence, either for themselves or take care of a qualifying family member, EDD will provide them paid family leave benefits, which is like compensation for up to 8 weeks. So now it's going to extend not only to those qualifying family members, but it's going to extend to a designated person. So this designated person is to be either someone that's related by blood or the equivalent of a family member. And this is in line, I see your reaction, Lori, and this is in line with recent changes to paid sick leave and to the California Family Rights Act, the leave of absence laws
Now
basically.
you said EDD's paying them. Is the employer then having to pay more into the EDD
No,
fund for this, or is
no,
this, where does
no.
this come from? State money?
This comes from the employee's taxes.
The employee's taxes. Okay.
Yeah. So this is not something that is going to affect the employers in any way.
Okay, good. Then
Yeah. So this is just so they can know now that basically anyone can take a leave of absence. If someone comes to you, like an employee comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm taking a leave because, my neighbor is having and they're the equivalent of my family."
and they're the see, that's crazy because yes, so first of all, I wanted to know the money stream, right? But the equivalent, because you got a small company. They've gone and paying for 2 or 3 people. They're relying on them heavily. They
Mhm,
can barely friggin' afford them, if at all. And
mhm.
now because their neighbor, which feels like family, is gone, is it, correct me if I'm wrong, Samara, during the time they're on this leave, you cannot make a permanent hire for replacement. You can replace them, but then that job must be available for them when they come. So you may have to get another person to be an employee or something. I mean, how do you deal with that?
Staffing agencies,
Staffing agency.
yeah.
And now
Exactly.
you have to pay them certain things, and then you're paying a staffing agency, and then they're gone. Okay, yeah, okay,
You
yeah,
don't have, well, I mean, the employer would pay them.
right.
They could pay them their sick time if they have
That's what I
time
thought. Yeah,
available.
sick time. Yeah.
Yeah, or vacation time.
Yeah.
But then they also are going to get the benefits from the state for the 8 weeks.
I think I want to become an employee and feel really close to a lot of people and say, you just like family to me. And then I could take a whole trip around the world. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop now. Keep going, Samara.
Um, yes, Lori. And then we have a new notice that needs to be provided to new employees and also existing employees. And this is basically to one, to let the employees know their rights under the law, because we already have a lot of notices, but we can add another one. But it's more so to also get their emergency contact in case that they are detained by ICE. Like the employer now has the obligation to actually notify their next of kin if they have been arrested while they were at work.
So
Or
the emergency contact, they have to let them know that they're, but okay. Okay.
yeah. So that's that. And then on the contract side, we have a change to agreement. So certain contracts, so I'm against having employment contracts unless you truly have an independent contractor, right?
Right.
Because you're
Right.
overriding the at-will law.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if that is your intention to actually make someone stay working for you for a year or two, you have to grant that contract, and by all means, if that's the intention. But something that got prohibited to be included in those contracts is the stay or pay provisions. So what that means is that you can't require an employee to pay back, like say, for example, training, or pay back like um if the contract said, okay, we're gonna cover your tuition for the amount of time that you work for us, and then that employee quits before the contract was supposed to go through, you can't ask them to repay for the tuition.
Got it. Because I know a lot of them say that you have to be working a certain time to get the tuition. And so if they stayed all the way until the day they got the degree and left, they're clean. You can't get them for any repayment of the money you invested in them, correct?
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. And then there is one, SB 261, that basically creates a new penalty for up to 3 times the amount of any outstanding wage judgment that is unsatisfied for 180 days after the time to file the appeal has lapsed. So essentially, if you lose a wage claim in the eyes of the labor commissioner, you have to pay, but then you don't pay it for 180 days is what, like 6 months? More than 6 months, then now you are going to owe triple the amount
Gotcha.
of that penalty.
And is minimum wage going up in any place? Because I thought I saw some announcement that I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it, but that minimum wage is going up. Am I right or wrong?
Minimum wage is going up to 16.90
Okay.
an hour for the state. And then remember that there are different cities that have their own minimum wage too. They usually go up in July. I think that only West Hollywood is the one that goes up January 1st. But most of the other ones go up July 1st. And so those are like unincorporated LA County, City of Los Angeles, Santa Monica, Malibu, Pasadena, and San Diego. I mean, so I'm thinking Southern California, because Northern California, it's almost like every city has their own
Yeah.
schedule. But for Southern California, that's those are the ones that do have their own minimum wage requirement.
You know what that makes me think about? It's something we learned a minute ago, Samara. So if minimum wage goes up, that means, or does that not mean that I could have to reassess my salary paid because the salary would then change too, because it would be
Yes.
twice the amount. So people who think, okay, minimum wage came up, but I have people on salary, they have to make sure that they assess that as also as well,
Yeah,
right?
that's a very good point, Lori.
Yeah.
So every time the minimum wage goes up, you not only need to increase the hourly employees minimum wage to be in compliance, but you also need to increase the salary employees minimum wage if you're paying them, just the twice the amount of the state's minimum wage. So
Yeah, because I could see many people say, well, minimum wage went up, but that doesn't affect me. And then the salaries haven't been increased because I just, I guess I wouldn't have necessarily thought about that too, being in combination. So somebody as employees with salary, first of all, check to see if they truly are exempt, but also check to see if maybe they set a salary some time ago that didn't get raised accordingly.
yes, you are right on point. And then one more I'm going to leave you with. I know we're running out of time, but there's a new law that now authorizes the labor commissioner to investigate and issue citations or to file a civil action for gratuities that are taken unlawfully from an employee's paycheck.
So, like, what would be an example of that?
So for example, um, if an employee, say like restaurant industry, right? And an employee doesn't get or for an employer to withhold
The
the
tips and stuff.
yeah.
Okay, I'm with you.
So
I'm with you. I
if
totally
an
understand
employee
now.
doesn't get, the tips, or sometimes a lot of times they like have a pool where they
Yep,
share
yep,
the tips with
exactly.
with the entire house.
Yep.
And so if you're not really properly calculating the amount that is due to that employee, um, then now the labor commissioner can investigate.
You know,
Um,
I gotta, okay, probably should not ask this question 3 minutes in, but you may not know, or maybe it's a dumb question, but what I'm curious about now, as I know, or as I believe, a lot of these lawsuits that can come up on an employer based on an employee or an independent contractor, or especially payroll is where I see this. They
mhm,
come under civil liability. In other words, the corporate shield does not protect you at all. You made a mess up on the payroll, even if it was a mistake. I know because I've seen people with liens on their house after making mistakes through QuickBooks. It just happened to be, but that's a civil liability. How
yes.
much of these HR rules can affect an employer on a civil versus going under the protection of the legal structure? I'm thinking a lot of them, if
A
not all.
lot. Yeah.
Right?
A lot of them issue both civil and civil and the actual penalties for
Corporate.
violating the law.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought. Because,
Yeah.
and when you have one of these, I'll just use the word judgments. Um, from what I understand too, bankruptcy does not relieve you of these penalties because they're a civil liability. And this is a very important thing that I just said, guys, because, and I'll tell you why I'm making a statement on this and making it stand out on its own. I can't tell you the number of people who say to me, I want to form an LLC to protect me because I'm getting ready to hire an employee. And I say, protect you from what? That is a failed belief, because I talk about all the time, people think that, first of all, the LLC is my little Gucci bag, now I got a little LLC, it's my Gucci bag. But if they're not thinking it's a Gucci bag, picture like I got a Superman shield. I got an LLC, I'm protected from everything. And I'm like, well, no, not really. And HR has a lot, it pierces the corporate veil, from my understanding.
Yeah, yeah. And not only that, but more and more I hate to leave. I hate to leave on a negative note.
We'll go a little bit over and make a positive note, right? Positive note, but go ahead, go ahead. It's your
Uh,
job. HR is not a pleasant little thing
sorry.
anymore. It's just not. You know what? It used to be, everybody, we're going to go on a retreat. We're all going to be happy. We're going to do
Yes,
a
yeah.
ropes class. That's done. It's the real world. Go ahead. What else you got for us?
No, I was just gonna say that, going with what you're saying about the civil penalties, a lot of other enforcement agencies are being given authority to enforce these HR laws. So last year, we actually even saw that employees can now file complaint with the police department for some of these violations. If for independent contractors, like the attorney general also has the authority to investigate some of these violations too. So it's just something to be mindful of, right?
Yeah.
It's not, it's not when you hire someone, do get all the information you need to be able to make an informed decision. And, either you make the call to take a risk, or just, to have someone, be brought on as an employee, right? So I'm always a proponent of that. I don't I don't dictate, to people what they should do. But I just rather give them the information so they can make an informed decision, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that know their business the best. They know what kind of budgets they have, what they can afford, and what kind of risk they're willing to take. So, yeah, but actually, on a positive note, so I'll be breaking down, every year we do have a webinar, through the SBDC, where I break down a lot of these laws and how they apply to small businesses, and the steps they need to take, to be able to, make sure that they're in compliance and stay out of trouble.
Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. And if for me, I think I had three thoughts. One of them is, you and I are so similar. That's why I absolutely love talking with you on camera, off camera, because I come from that same position. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you what the laws are. And of course, you're much more proper. I say a dead body hanging out with the hand out of the back door, but we come from that same positioning. And I think it just is a matter of its reality, and you have to make sure it financially pencils out. And we want to be in business to make some money, and that creates happiness. If we need our business to pay us and we can't buy a quart of milk, like I always say, it doesn't create happiness. And I'm going to say one last thing, and I know I'm leaving on a very controversial statement. It's been handwritten by Lori. I've been saying it for some time, and it's kind of my positioning on government. Okay, so I'm going to end. I'm going to pass it to you for the final statements. But it's not that I don't believe in the importance of each of these, but this is, if you follow, and I'm going to go really slow on my statement. Government cannot regulate or control morality or mortality.
I love that.
And that's what I think government's going to try to do. You can't regulate morality, it comes from within. You can't regulate mortality, or no one would smoke. I have nothing against smoking, but it's a fact. So you cannot have, we got to get to a personal responsibility where we understand that it's our morality, it's our mortality, and the government is not there to regulate it. And I think some of these rules that we've seen over the last decade, if not longer, fall under trying to regulate humans in morality and mortality, and just lead to control.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna add to that. I'll say that from an HR stance, right, where I see so many regulations, like I don't know if people can relate or have seen. I don't know which Harry Potter movie it is, but there was a Harry Potter movie where like they had a new teacher. She would dress in all pink, and then she would come and she will implement every single rule. Like one of the students would do something, and then she would say, you can't do that, you can't do that either, every single thing they did. And then she covered the whole entire wall with like all these rules that she was coming up with. And this can this can I feel that for HR. I feel like every single year we are coming up with all these rules. But the irony to that, in my eyes, is that when I see people, or I see small businesses wanting to be good employers, wanting to do the right thing, like it's almost like you don't need all these laws, because everything is just kind of just flowing. Like, they are interested in creating like a great culture for their employees. They are interested in making sure their employees are happy. And that's the irony that I see. And sometimes these laws kind of like, you know, sort of put a damper into like the flow of those environments, because you want to do certain things, but oh wait, there's a law now we have to incorporate into this. And okay, hang on. How do we make it continue to flow, the way that we're having things. So on a positive note, I do see a lot of employers wanting to do the right thing, treating their employees kindly, being very, very giving with our employees. And, those are the best work environments and the most productive. And, you know, I think everyone wants to do that, but then we then we encounter the laws, and a lot of times like these laws kind of make us like dance around things that we would normally
I fully
have.
agree. I fully agree. Well, for me, on my last point, I am in the cheering section for the human species. I think they're going to come around, figure this out, and I think we just got to do workarounds to make it make sense for us in the meantime. Tamara, thank you. This, as always, fascinating discussions. I think that these are conversations that have to be had because in both of our combined cases, it's our audience, the small businesses that are figuring out what legal structures, what's tax, what their finances are, what their HR, what their choices are, independent contractor. I mean, we collectively, the two of us, hit huge topics that will create success, failure, legal fines, penalties. I mean, we're really walking on uh, a tightrope with the conversations that we have. So thank you for being here. Sadie, we went over, I know, but it was just too deep and too valuable for me to cut it off.
Well, I'm gonna have to go with Brenda, where she's like, now we're having philosophical conversations. And I'm like, you're right, Brenda.
Yeah, we are. You know what? You can expect everything here. I tell you, everything here. So, Zamara, I'm going to have you back on January for sure, kind of go over all this. In the meantime, I don't know if we had your webinars that's coming up at PCC. If not, we'll go ahead and get them and we'll get them in the chat. Do you have them? Do you have any of them?
No, we don't have dates yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Send
but
it to me and I'll make sure it gets in the chat in an upcoming show so people are aware of your dates. Okay.
thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. So, to my frequent flyers that are here every week, thank you so much. If you're new, oh, I don't even know what to say. You're probably going to say, yeah, I got to come back. This was just way too wild. I got to come back and check it out again. So, I will see everybody next week. Sadie's going to stay behind. She will make sure that you get all your questions answered, as well as contact to reach out to me. Samara is also open for consultation. She's at the Pasadena SBDC. You can reach out to her. And with that, I got to sign off. This is Lori Williams, Small Biz Talk, and thank you for being here. And I'll see everybody next week. Bye bye.
Bye, Lori. Alrighty, guys. Well, we know the jam for those frequent flyers. I'm going to get those links up for you so you can reach out. And as you heard, both of our speakers today are small business advisors. So if you are not a client of the SBDC, please connect with us because you never know. Maybe you want to set up an appointment with them, see if you can get on their calendar, maybe be a client. And remember, all of this is at no cost to you. This is all being brought to you tax was it because your taxes pay for this, so definitely take I don't want to say advantage because it sounds like a bad word for having these philosophical conversations, but I will say to please use the resources that are at your disposal. So why not connect and get to grow your small business with the help of the SBDC. Alrighty, guys, I feel like I'm doing an infomercial right here. So let me know if you need anything in the chat. I'm gonna hang out. I got the survey going for you. Drop some more info in the chat. I'll be here. Let me know if you need anything.